that you would receive in case you don't reach the what? In time. So now the goal is what? Changing. The mother is no longer the one dragging you, especially for those who did not study from Kampala City. Because I know Kampala City, usually parents ferry kids to the school until almost secondary level. But for a number of you who were traveling by yourselves, your intention at that time was to make sure that you are not what? Late. Then as you transformed, somehow, time reached when you started thinking about the grades, that your performance was important. No one was bothering you, no one was telling you what to do, but you started focusing on what will I get? Will I get a first grade? Will I get this? And so on. Now the goal transformed itself into performance. Along the way, as you are finishing school, the goal changes to what will I do when I'm done with academic life? So whatever you do is not for its own sake, but largely because you want to know what you will do when you finish what? School. Now you notice that a goal can change. What am I trying to communicate? At different levels of wealth accumulation, you may have different financial what? Goals. Because goals do evolve. Don't achieve your goal and then all of a sudden you stop because you have realized your what? Your goal. Because goals do evolve. They do change from one point to another. Maybe your goal which you set was largely defined by your age, maybe defined by the level of income, maybe your status, I do not know. But just be sure that goals can be changed. Keep changing them. Now, what do you mean by financial goals? Because remember, we said our wealth accumulation. You want to consistently increase your net worth, but ultimately the purpose is to ensure that you realize your financial goal. And that is very critical. You need a financial goal. So a goal is an undertaking that will require accumulation of wealth. That you must accumulate resources to realize it. That is a goal. And these goals can be at different levels. You can have a short-term goal, you can have a medium-term goal, you can have a long-term goal. And even if you have a long-term goal, you may find yourself breaking it up into small or shorter period goals, achievable goals. Why? Because if you keep pursuing the long-term goal on its own, then it may demoralize you. Time may reach when you are not realizing your goal and then you get demoralized. So that's why it's important to break it up. I don't know how many of you have read about a book called Atomic Habits. It gives a very clear explanation why you should always celebrate whatever you realize. Even a small step forward is worth celebrating. And this is true even when you are talking about your financial goals, as you are setting these financial goals. So when you break it up, you may have the broad ones, but you may also have the specific ones. I'm just giving a few examples here, but not necessarily everything that you should have in mind. For you as individuals, you may have your own goals. Just remember that for appropriate wealth accumulation, you must have a goal, a financial goal in mind. That is very important. If you don't have one, then obviously you're going to find yourself with challenges. I see some free seats behind there, just in case, unless someone just wants to sit in front. But I see a few seats, there's some specific in there. So these are just a few of the goals that you can have. Like I said at the beginning, I try to elaborate a lot, but as we move on, I try to be a little bit brief to make sure that we move along. Now, what do you mean by clarifying incomes? Clarifying incomes. Remember, I have a financial goal, but a financial goal will require resources. Where are you going to get those resources? Most of us can only get resources from our incomes. I'll share about the different sources. So it's important to know what are your incomes. Where do you get resources from? What is it that you're deriving funds from? You can either derive it from actively working or from investment. And that creates two sources of income. There's what we call active income and passive income sources. I'll talk about this briefly, but active income sources are those where you must sacrifice time. If you are not there, you will not earn. It is you who is the source of that income. That is active. So it's like employment. You are working even in even if it's self-employment or this employment, it doesn't matter. The issue is, do you have to be there? If, for example, you have a market stall in Nakasero here, and if you are not there, the stall is not operating, then that is a source of active income. But if you have two stalls, and those stalls, one of them you rent it out to another person, the other one rented out is giving you passive income. It means even if you go home and sleep, that income will come in. But this one will not bring in anything unless you are there. So that's the major difference between these two. So these are possible sources of income. When you are still young, when you just started working, normally your active income will dominate. But it's important that you try to create passive income over time. Because when you reach the extreme end, where I said you will not be actively working, then it's passive income which should be dominating. That even when you are sleeping, even when you are on somewhere on vacation, you can still add something. So that is to do with clarifying your income. About expenses. Remember, incomes must be supported. You cannot earn without spending. So you must analyze your expenses. And analyzing your expenses, I'll just focus on two for explanation purposes. You mean where your funds go. And here, you need to have two clear concepts in mind. There's what we call needs and what we call wants. Now, it is very important in wealth accumulation to have a clear understanding of these two. Some of the expenses are on what we call needs, and the others are on what we call wants. Now, needs are those which you must incur in order to survive. In order to do what? Survive. Those are needs. Then there are those that you may want to incur, but even if you do not incur on them, you can still survive. Now, I want you to be aware that in the basic meaning, the most basic meaning, the needs would simply be food, shelter, and clothing. That is the basic. Others would likely be what? Wants. But I want you to remember this. As you progress in your income earning, the needs increase. In other words, you may find someone, I'll give an example, I'm sorry to use this, but I'm not trying to be offensive to anyone. If I am a person with disability and I cannot walk by myself and I need a wheelchair is a need for me to survive. Much as it's not part of the typical definition of what? Of needs. Now, if I do not know, I heard about a lawyer here. If I'm a lawyer, and for me to earn, I must drive a Mercedes-Benz, then it becomes a what? A need. I want you to quote me clearly here, that needs can actually vary. You know how lawyers behave. They must come, the pompous way, they have to for a client to believe that they are good lawyers. You get what I mean. Which would not be the same for an accountant or an IT person. I had engineers there. The engineer it doesn't matter whether he came on a border, it doesn't matter. But for a lawyer, when you come on a border, you're like, but is this a lawyer? So much as these are the typical definitions, I want you to have this in mind. So in other words, if your job or your earning potential requires that you load airtime on your phone, then you cannot say it's a word. Is that clear? Because you will not earn without that what? Airtime. Yeah. But in the basic meaning, it means needs necessities, then wants are. For purposes of hints. These are hints which you can have for analyzing your expenses. But in the interest of time, I'm not going to explain each of them. Most of them are self-explanatory. These may either help you to manage your expenses or to ensure that you somehow minimize them. For example, you must have a saving target before spending. Of course, I told you that we must set a saving target, and that will come later on. But usually, some people believe that saving is what you have after you spend. And we are saying no. As you are analyzing your expenses, first set a saving what? Target. Get to know that I need to save so much. Then you look at the expenses. That will help you to ensure that you analyze your expenses in a critical way. Another which I can give, remember to pay attention to the needs, which we just talked about. Because for the needs, you need them, it's a must. There's nothing you can do about it. You have to ensure that you actually meet them. Without meeting them, then you're going to find challenges. Okay? That was to do with some of the ideas that I will float. So savings, remember we said, one, you have to clarify you set a financial target goal. That's the first one. Secondly, you clarify your what? Income. Thirdly, you analyze your what? Expenses. Then after that, you set a saving what? Target. You must set a saving target. So what do you mean by a saving target? When you talk about savings, you are simply saying that proportion of your income that you set aside to help you meet future, but also build your capacity to generate passive what? Income. That is the purpose of the saving. You are trying to say, okay, I earn so much, I have already analyzed my expenses, they are like this, they are earnings and so on, then I must save to ensure that I'm able to meet my future needs, but at the same time, I create an opportunity to generate passive income. Remember the meaning of passive income, where you are not available, but you still do what? Earn income. That is very critical. So when you talk about the savings, that serving those two purposes. One, making sure that you meet your needs, which is short-term goals, but also create a fund to help you to do what? To invest. That is part of the savings. Of course, there are ideas which are given. Rule of thumb says that we should be able to save 10%. That is rule of thumb, 10% of the income. Now, I want to tell you this. It's not a must that when you don't save 10% of your income, then you are not saving. Later on, I'll tell you that you should start small. It doesn't matter. But this is a rule of thumb. Rule of thumb means something generally acceptable as being ideal or as being good. Of course, if that is your starting target, again, the rule of thumb says that you should increase it to the extent of saving at least 30%, and then creating what we call an emergency fund. That we normally say should be at least 3 months of your earnings. So in other words, if I earn, let's say, 3 million shillings a month, if I can have a fund equivalent to 9 million shillings, then I'm good at saving. But these are rules of thumb. Personally, as an individual, it will depend on who you are. Like we talked about the other goals, that goals do what? Evolve, depending on the environment, depending on so many other factors. Now this is very important. Savings should not be an end, but a means to an end. So don't simply save, and save. I'll tell you that these savings must be converted into what? Investments. Now the investment club's connection comes in. The opportunity to make sure that you actually convert these savings into investments. These are just ideas. I'll briefly run through them. You should have an incremental change in your savings based on the changes in the environment. If, for example, your incomes increase, also increase your savings target. Don't make it stagnant just because you have already realized it. The absolute amount that you save should also keep on increasing as you age. Usually as you grow older, of course, there are assumptions here. Your income should also change upwards. Then that also means that you should also increase your saving target. Then as you are doing so, like we said, it's not an end in its own. Make sure that you keep on identifying opportunities for investing. There are opportunities for every amount that you have to invest. One time we talked about investments. That's why I said that I will not be focusing on investments as far as today is concerned. Now there are bits here which you should be aware of. It's not easy to save to everyone. No one should ever lie to you that for them it was easy to save. It is difficult, it is a discipline you develop. So usually, the hints we give individuals that you can automate your savings. What do you mean by automating savings? If you told Centenary Bank or any other financial institution that every month deduct 200,000 from my income on this particular date, they will deduct it. And I can assure you survive with what you remain with. But usually for some people it is difficult to pick funds and they say, let me transfer this to my savings account. That's why automation comes in. Because saving is a discipline, and disciplines are always very difficult to master. Like I said earlier, start small, but build your saving culture. It's never too early, never too late. Even if you don't have savings, you can start. So it doesn't matter where you are, you can always start. But consider safety, how safe your savings are. Of course, from a context like where we are, use regulated financial institutions. That's what you should do. Even if you're an investment club, don't just open up an account with any other financial institution which may not be regulated. That's very important. That is safety. Then, of course, the cost implication of your saving should be in mind. You don't want your funds to keep on reducing. And then lastly, the likely return. Usually for savings, the returns are very low, but it's important to have this at the back of your mind. The complicated one, which I told you earlier on, is telling people come up with a budget. Very many people find it complicated and very difficult. But unfortunately, it's important. So usually what I tell people when it comes to, when I'm doing a bit of coaching and financial advisory in this area, I tell them anything is better than nothing. So in other words, whatever you write is better than what you've not written. So even if you simply come up with an estimate of your incomes and an estimate of your expenses, it will give you a picture of the flow of where your funds are going. In other words, where am I getting incomes from? Where am I getting revenues from? Where are my expenses going? Can I accommodate a saving target which I set within here? And if that is the case, is there any surplus? When you start off with anything, over time you'll keep on improving on it. Because it's a complicated thing, I would argue that if you want to accumulate your wealth, start at the lowest level. Be able to estimate your income, be able to have a projection of your expenses, check if that would be create a surplus after considering your savings, and then take appropriate decisions. That is as far as personal budgeting is concerned. But all that you want is to ensure that you know where funds are going, where funds are coming from, and then you take relevant decisions. The decisions are going to do with what you are going to spend on, then also creation of certainty. Certainty means that if something is going to be spent at a particular period, you are in position to do it. That is the certainty element, which is very critical when it comes to your wealth accumulation. Investment, I said I'm not going to do a lot about it. I only have this particular slide because I said that is not going to be the focus of this particular discussion. But the link is, remember, savings are not supposed to be kept as savings per se. They are just a means to enable you accumulate funds for investment. And the investment has a purpose to move towards a financial goal. That is the link that I want to create through how you invest the savings. Now, in the component which we talked about implementation. Implementation is huge. When you are implementing your wealth accumulation plan, you have to remember that there's a lot to do. One, there could be debt. Here, I told you that when you are accumulating wealth, we use our savings. But there are people who argue that savings alone cannot help you to accumulate wealth, that you may need to get support. And usually support is going to be in the form of debts or loans. And this will help you to fund your wealth accumulation. However, you need to be careful that you have to manage this debt appropriately. I know people like, for some of you who do a lot of observations around financial matters internationally, there's a gentleman, he's called, I think, Kiyosaki. He argues that it's a fact, but you have to be careful. Don't just manage it the way he does it. Because for him, he says he does not save at all. What he does is to get loans from financial institutions, and he uses these loans to finance investments. When he gets losses, he simply reports them to the tax authority, such that the tax authority does not charge him a tax. Actually, for him, he focuses on tax planning. That his intention is to pay the minimum tax possible. That is the intention. And you do that best when you use loans. Please don't copy and paste, because it's very dangerous. It requires someone who is very competent in the way they manage their tax returns. For you as an individual, it's a little bit complicated, especially the regime that we have within Uganda. When I say regime, I mean the tax regime, not the regime of NRA. I mean the tax regime. The tax laws that we have in Uganda may not favor you if you are trying to copy and paste what he's doing. Now, that aside, I am not saying that loans are bad, that debt is not good. No, it is okay, but you must use it appropriately. That's why I'm saying in implementation, you must manage the debt. You have to find a way of managing the debt. Remember that it has to be paid back. Usually it is secured on something that you have, and it has a cost. Which cost you must watch out for? The total cost of credit is important. Don't just focus on the interest. I know interest is the major cost or component of the total cost of credit. But remember, when you are getting any debt, look at the total cost of credit, because it may limit your ability to actually accumulate wealth. And remember how the interest is charged. Is it flat? Is it variable? Is it declining balance? All those aspects are very important. Also the duration, the term. The term is important. Of course, when you have a long-term loan, it means that the payments may be small, but of course the total cost may also be substantial. But then if you make it short, that's when you lose your property, which you secured, against which it was secured. Why? Because it puts you under a lot of pressure. The shorter the period, the higher the stress, but also the lower the total cost of credit. So you need to balance this. Actually, it's all about balancing this. You try to balance the benefits vis-a-vis the cost. When you are talking about management of of debt. You can't totally run away. Some people have done that, but you take, I would say, wealth accumulation, you take a longer period if you run away from debt. But of course, you have a secure life. You sleep soundly at night. But you take a longer period. Now, if you take debt, there's a high risk. So your heart pumps a little at a higher rate, but it takes a shorter period. So as long as you can balance, you can find the way of accumulating wealth, even when you have these loans. These are just a few hints. Remember that the financial institutions, here I'm talking about people like Air France, they are not doing you a favor by giving a loan. So don't be like it's a favor. They are in business. Because they're in business, be careful. Analyze whatever they're telling you. You understand that? So don't go, especially these money lenders. And I always said never go to money lenders. You're wasting your time. Because they're not regulated, probability of losing your money is very high. Go to regulated institutions, where you can have someone to run to in case of problems. But at the end of it all, just know that you need to be careful. Don't rush into signing. Look at all the terms that are there. And then when it comes to using these loans for wealth accumulation, these are the hints I give. One, strictly borrow for business. In other words, do not borrow for consumption unless it's an emergency. I want to make sure that it is indicated. Yes, unless it's a life-threatening what? Situation or an emergency. What I mean by an emergency, much as even if you came to me for financial advice, I'll tell you, do not borrow for, let's say, to organize a wedding. That's consumption. That's a classic example. That's consumption. But I cannot say do not borrow money to go to undergo an operation, a medical operation. That's an emergency. What do I mean? If you do not undergo an operation and you are going to die, then whatever you own is useless. So to save your own life, it is okay to do what? To borrow. But there's always a condition. You should have the capacity. I want to be certain that I have it somewhere. There should be capacity to pay back, not borrowing for the sake of borrowing. So if you don't have the capacity, then look for a way. You've had people doing what you call crowdfunding or crowdsourcing, where you say you write up something, you put it on social media, a kidney failure, you contribute. Now that means the person does not have the capacity to pay, even if they did what? They borrowed funds. But if you have the capacity, then it is okay to borrow for emergency. If not, please do not borrow, unless you are borrowing for what? For business. I know even borrowing for business, it can go wrong, which is okay. But that's a risk worth taking if you have tried to tie all the loose ends. Because, I mean, business is all about risk. For wealth accumulation involves a lot of what? Risk management. And that's why one of the aspects of your wealth accumulation journey should be the management of what? Risk. Because we know in whatever you do, there's always an element of what? Risk. You can't run away from risk. And the most common way we manage risk is through insurance. But I'm not saying it's the only one. We have so many other alternatives. You can diversify. Diversify means taking on different investments or with different risk what? Profiles. That is also accepted. But the most common one is to do with what? Insurance. That insurance helps you to get protected against those uncertainties that may arise. And then it releases your time to focus on what matters most. Because here, instead of worrying, you have passed on the worry to another entity and you have decided to focus on what matters to you in your journey of wealth accumulation. Now, I want to put this entire discussion, before that I will have to talk about a bit of post-retirement or post-earning period. What I mean by this is that time will come when you can no longer earn active income. If you are lucky, you put up something to do with passive income. But at the end of it all, you must prepare for that particular period. And that requires answering a number of questions. Questions regarding that particular period. For example, how do you plan to retire? When do you plan to retire? How many years do you expect to live in retirement? Of course, here I have to exaggerate for planning purposes. Don't take a short period and say, I think I'll be there for 20 years and die. When you are referring to yourself making 80 years. A whole president of Uganda celebrated 80 years, you imagine. Now, why would you assume that you don't live to that age? So you have to exaggerate a bit. Because you would rather leave something behind than you fail to survive during that particular period. That is on how long to take you to live. Then how much you would expect to spend in retirement. And lastly, where you plan to retire. In retirement, liquidity is what? Key. Liquidity is more important than profitability, but I'll try to explain that a little bit more. I want to sum this up briefly by putting the whole picture together. When you talk about financial planning for wealth accumulation, what do we mean? I'm going to do verbatim for member to follow this, just like 2 more slides, don't worry. This is why you are planning or the process of developing and implementing an integrated comprehensive plan designed to meet current and future financial goals, to improve financial well-being and prepare for financial emergencies as well as routine financial demands in what? In life. Now, how we go about this is not a straightforward. I wanted to ask this, but I don't think I have a lot of time, so I will not ask it. I wanted to check why you people or a number of people, why you believe that a number of people do not participate in what? Financial planning. Trying to make sure that they find a way of putting aside something for themselves to accumulate wealth. But there was a study which was carried out, so I'll just share with you what was observed as results. One, interesting reasons. The number one was lack of confidence in math and finance skills. So people gave up to plan simply because they felt their math and financial skills do not measure up. That was the most common reason. The next one was the fear of failure. So because they felt a plan, they had planned for a long time and they were not materializing, they felt it would not even help at all. The next one was expectation that someone else would take care of them or take care of the financial plan. I know this happens, I'm sorry to say this, but very common with ladies. They assume the kids will do that, this one, the husband will do this, and so on. Don't be so sure. Don't be so sure. Take the matter yourself. Some of them were not interested, then others did not know who to trust. The reason why the basis of this particular reason is, in financial planning, you need some guidance. Even if I come here and talk to you for 1 hour or 30 minutes or 40 minutes, I cannot really summarize everything. So normally we refer to a financial advisor that seeks financial advice. You have a bigger picture of understanding what you need to do, but the nitty-gritties you may need guidance. We do coaching, we guide people, and so on. So some of the respondents were of the view that they didn't have someone they trusted. So they felt there were no trusted financial advisors, their peers were not good enough, and so on. Then others said they were too busy, then others were overwhelmed with the quantity of information and they did not know where to start from. So they abandoned. Those were the common reasons which were cited in there. Let me summarize this wealth accumulation in terms of planning. What they are basically, you can put it, whatever I've talked about can be summarized into 3 stages. And this I want you to remember. Don't forget them because they will give you a high level view of the entire process. One, you have wealth accumulation, then you have wealth protection, and then lastly wealth distribution. So what is wealth accumulation? This is that stage when, I would even use age, you have started working, you are actively earning to build a base or capital that you can use for passive income. So that is the stage when someone is very aggressive. This is the stage when you can try out anything. You can even try sports betting if you want. You get hit, you get back, you realize that it was a wrong move, you pick the lessons never to do it again. Then you go into maybe buying land. You just buy because you've had it easy without doing due diligence, you lose, you come back. So you get hit left, right, and everywhere. But eventually, you will settle. So in this stage, you are actively involved in earning. You use what, the majority. Of course, I'm not talking about those who are born lucky, that they were born with a silver platter in front of them, so they have inheritance and so on. But I'm talking about the majority. So you have to actively earn, save, look for opportunities for investments. That is when you talk about wealth accumulation. Now, what is the key factor here that you should watch out for? You must manage your risk because you have a high appetite for risk at this stage. That's when people try out forex trading, do this, all those ventures which are very dangerous. They are usually at this stage. So be careful because of the risk that you are likely to face here. And if you get hit, please don't stay down. Get up, resume until when you've accumulated a certain amount that you can use to get passive income. Then we have a stage which we call wealth protection or preservation. Now this is a stage when you have learned lots of lessons in life. You have realized that life is not easy. Having realized that, then you start focusing. And the focus now is largely on profitability, because now you can earn both active and passive income. You have accumulated some wealth, you have undertaken some investments, and you now need to structure yourself to manage risk in a better way. So here profitability becomes an issue, but at a certain risk level. Those are the key terms at this stage. That your focus is on profitability, but you are also very particular on the risk levels. You can no longer take on those forex trading aspects of businesses. This stage, liquidity is very important, because you are not so much interested in the earning, you are in the evenings of your financial life cycle. So being in the evening, you are trying to make sure that you only look for how you can pass this on to either the next generation or to make your life as comfortable as possible. So you can create a trust. Some people just simply do wills. You come up with your will and you're like, even if in my absence, this is what will happen. So those are the aspects which will follow or fall under distribution or wealth distribution. Those are the three broad categories I wanted to focus on as far as financial planning for wealth accumulation. Long term, not just for yourself, but long term wealth accumulation. Thank you so much for listening to me. I've tried to be as brief as possible. I don't know if this was